Hi, folks. Welcome to the Dr. Todd Podcast. This is episode 1, the very first episode in my upcoming podcast. And I just want to take a moment to thank you for joining me. And I hope that you find a lot of value in here. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different topics that have to do with relationships, that have to do with our sense of self, as well as our physical body, our overall holistic health and wellness, physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, sexual, all of that kind of stuff. So it should be a pretty interesting podcast, I think. And we're going to cover a lot of different topics. And what I thought I would start with today is this whole idea about evolution. And what I mean by that is that when we are in a stuck place and we are in a pattern of behavior and we seem to be undermining our own success, and we keep finding ourselves in situations or relationships or jobs or whatever that don't serve us well. We want to get out of there. We want to evolve so that we can get to a better place in our lives, right? We want to be able to, we want to be able to feel valued. We want to feel safe. We want to feel empowered and competent and connected. And those are just natural things that we all want as human beings. And unfortunately, because of a combination of things, and whether that's things that you went through during childhood or even things that happened in adulthood, that wounded a part of ourselves, or sometimes many parts of ourselves, we will oftentimes make decisions and perceive things and react to things in ways that get in our way of being really successful and feeling like life has meaning and joy, and we feel good about ourselves and all of that. And so in this podcast, I really want to look at the variety of things that we can do to help us feel happier, healthier, more fulfilled, and that our life has meaning, and that we feel like we're moving forward and we're able to evolve into our best and highest self, so to speak. So in this first episode, what I thought I would talk about is the importance of two primary factors that are important in our ability to evolve. And these are clarity and a plan of action. The first is the idea that self-knowledge on its own is insufficient to bring about significant long-term change in our life. It is helpful to have some clarity around how we got here, why we struggle with certain things, what things we tend to struggle with, what kinds of situations tend to trigger us, what kind of things that we tend to do to get us into trouble or to undermine our own success. But just having that clarity, just having that self-awareness and that self-knowledge is not enough. It's important for sure, because unless we know where we are, it is really difficult to move forward. It's really difficult to know what to change, to know where to direct our attention to our own healing in order to move forward in a positive way. But self-knowledge in and of itself is not enough. And I see a lot of people fall into this trap where they look for the next book, they listen to the next podcast, and it gives them a lot of good information, and they go, oh, that really makes sense. I love what this author had to say. It totally made sense. I love what that podcaster had to say. It really made sense. But you could almost, this is a little bit unfair, but you can almost tell how stuck somebody is by how many self-help books they have sitting on their shelf, right? People who are really stuck are craving some answers, are craving solutions because they're sick and tired of feeling bad all the time. And so they'll pick up books, they'll listen to podcasts, they'll go to workshops, they'll do all of these things, and they'll get lots of knowledge. They'll get lots of understanding about themselves. And that is okay. That's not bad. It's helpful, but it is not enough. Something else that I see a lot in people who are struggling is this desire for some validation, right? And support and feeling safe and feeling heard and feeling understood. And again, this is very important. It is important to feel heard. It is important to feel validated. It is important to feel safe. And it is important to have people in our lives, our support system, who can hold space for us, who can validate us, who can be there, be present with us in an empathetic way and a sympathetic way, and offer their support and their love and all of those kinds of things. But that too, unfortunately, is insufficient to really bring about change. And this is one of the problems that I see with a lot of therapists out there. And me being a former therapist who spent a lot of time, not only in grad school, but in the whole therapy environment, there is a real emphasis on creating safe space, on validating people's experience and listening, letting them feel heard, and all of that. And I don't want to take away from the importance of that, because the need to feel like we are not alone is very important. We need to feel like we are connected with somebody who feels safe, who understands us, who will validate our experience. And that is all important. But again, it is not sufficient to bring about significant, meaningful, long-lasting change. Another thing that I have seen people do when they are feeling stuck is to be attracted to the whole kind of Tony Robbins, motivational speaker, personal power movement. And where those kinds of things are valuable is giving us a sense of vision of what our life could be, right? They are really good at getting us excited about our potential, getting us really excited about what our life could be, the happiness, the riches, the joy, the time, the all of the great stuff that life has to offer. And the thought is that if people get excited enough, if people get passionate enough about the life that they could have, that would be enough to bring about meaningful change. And unfortunately, again, it just doesn't work that way. The only thing that will bring about long-lasting change is momentum. And momentum is built through action. If we think about transforming our life kind of like taking a road trip, right? We're really trying to get from one place to another, right? So just for the sake of this conversation as an illustration, if we were trying to get from New York to LA, for example, the only thing that is going to get us there is a roadmap that we can follow, actions that we can take in a particular sequence that will move us from New York to LA. And it's the movement that creates that momentum by taking a specific path, taking specific actions that will actually get us from one place to the other. It does not matter how much we know about New York. It Doesn't matter, and that's like the self-knowledge thing. It doesn't matter how much we know about New York. And it doesn't matter how much we want to be in LA or how much we think LA is amazing. If we don't have a plan of action, steps that we can take, that we can implement in our lives, there is no movement. There's nothing that will get us from one point to the other. And that is the important point that I want to drive home here. If you were taking the action to get in your car, you turn it on, get on the freeway, and either get on the freeway to drive across country from New York to LA, or you drive to the airport and get on the airplane and it drives you over there. That sequence of action will get you from New York to LA, really whether you want to or not, right? And that is an important concept. I tell people who are newly in recovery from addiction, I say, you know what? I don't care how you feel. I don't care what you think. I don't even care whether you believe me. And when I tell you what to do, I don't care if you believe that it'll work or not. If you take the action steps that I provide for you to take based on my experience and the experience of a lot of other people who have recovered and really done something and moved their lives forward, if you just take the next little right action, just the next little right steps, you will eventually transform your life, whether you think it will work or not, whether you even want it to or not. Because the thing that is just a truism about our brain and how our brain works is that we are not transformed through thought. We're not transformed through wish. We're not transformed through desire. We are transformed through experience. And experience is what creates our reality. That is what creates our sense of ourselves and the world around us. If you grew up in a home, for example, if you grew up in a home where you never felt loved or cared about, and now you're an adult and there's a deep sense of you that just feels unlovable or unworthy, it doesn't matter how many people say, oh, no, you're lovely, people love you, and all of that. It's like it doesn't feel real to you. And you could even stand in front of a mirror and just say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And it may make you feel a little bit better in the moment, but the reality is that until you experience being loved, you won't have the internal sense of being lovable. Until you experience success, you'll never develop the intuitive sense of how to be successful. And the only way to get that experience is through action. Action creates experience. And when you take a series of actions and start creating experience, that is what builds the momentum necessary to bring about change in your life. And in this podcast and in all the work that I do, in the courses that I do, my coaching work, and when I go and give seminars and workshops and all of that, it is all about providing people with the next little step that they can take in order to create the experience and build the momentum that will help them shift their internal world and the way that they interact with the world so that they develop an intuitive sense of how to navigate the world in a more successful way so that they can perceive themselves and the world more accurately. When we have some woundedness to the sense of self, let's say that, our parents were very emotionally cold to us, or even if they were very aggressive, toward us, or we experienced some abuse, and either at the hands of our parents or other adults in our lives. We may have an internalized sense that there's something about us that is either broken or undesirable or dirty or wrong, or that everybody hates us or the world is unsafe or whatever. And we may have some internalized sense of that. When we do, that will change the way that we perceive the world and perceive ourselves. So we are no longer seeing the world or ourselves accurately. We could feel like everybody hates us or that we are completely worthless, and the people around us are like, what are you talking about? You're an amazing human being. And I mean, the fact that you see yourself that way is so disconnected with how everybody else sees you. But when we have those internal wounds, right, we perceive the world differently, and we perceive ourselves differently than is probably accurate, right? We will tend to see the world as reinforcing our own wounds, even when the world may not be. We may see that somebody doesn't hold a door for us, because they hate us or because they're being rude, when in fact it may have nothing to do with that. And then when we perceive things in a little bit of a distorted way, we will tend to react and respond and make decisions based on those. I'm going to call them faulty perceptions, not in that the perceptions aren't real, but because the perception doesn't necessarily fit reality very well. And, the problem is that unless we are intentional about acting different and creating new experience, then it is very difficult to heal that internal part of ourself, right? And that's the main message that I want to drive home today, right? Is that self-knowledge is important. It's an important component, right? We have to have some clarity around where we are. If we want to travel cross country, we have to know we're in New York, right? And also having a support system that can be there and provide us with a sense of safety and validation, and that people are present with us, is important. It is also important to have some vision about where we want to go, about the life that we want to create. But all three of those things, while valuable, are not the same as getting in the car and driving west, right, towards LA, right? We need to just start taking the next right step. We need to start acting as if even though oftentimes that is really scary and stepping outside of our comfort zone. We have to start acting as if we are a lovable person, a capable person, that we're going to set a boundary, even though it may really cause us to be distressed, because it's like, if I was a healthy, very secure, very grounded person, setting a boundary around how much I am willing to help or willing to give would be a normal thing to do. And if I am going to create new experiences, I have to start taking some action as though I am already there. I have to start taking some action as though I am somebody who feels very lovable, who feels very confident and very competent, even if on the inside we don't feel that way. And even on the inside, we feel like, oh my God, everybody can tell I'm a phony. Everybody can tell I'm a fake. I have total imposter syndrome. I'm not fooling anybody. And that is all normal. And what I tell people when I'm working with them, either in the clinic or when I'm working with them in 12-step programs in recovery, I tell people, pay attention to those feelings that you are doing something that doesn't feel like comfortable, or that everybody can tell you're a fraud. Because when you take meaningful meaningful action to heal, to start showing up in the world in a different way and creating new experience, your brain is going to start freaking out because it's going to start giving you messages like, what are you doing? This isn't you. And in a way, it's right. It isn't you, but it can become you, and it will become you if you simply continue to take the right action and start acting as if you are a happy, competent, capable human being and taking the actions. Now, one of the challenges that a lot of people have, and I certainly did, I had a really good intuitive sense of how to act in a very dysfunctional environment. I grew up in one, and I was surrounded by very dysfunctional people for a long, long time. In a really good intuitive sense of how to navigate through those spaces. What I didn't have was an intuitive sense of how does a person who feels valued or who has confidence or who knows how to set boundaries, what do they even do? Because I really had no idea. In fact, when I was first getting into therapy, I asked a supervisor once, I said, so, what do you say? I mean, what's the first thing that you say when somebody comes into your office? And my supervisor just said, he goes, oh, well, just welcome them and, make them feel comfortable. And I'm like, no. I need to know the specific sequence of words that come out of your mouth. Do you start with hello? Do you start with hi? What is the sequence of words? Like, give me a sentence that I can repeat. Because unless I had a clear sense of exactly what to say, I had, it's like, I had no frame of reference for what that should be, particularly coming from a very dysfunctional place. And I was still like learning how to show up in the world differently. And so he kind of laughed, and we talked about some very specific language that I could use with my new clients to like have them come in. I would say hi, shake their hands, have them take a seat, and then use the phrase, so what brings you in today? Just to open up that conversation. And that level of detail, I have found, is extremely helpful when you are trying to move forward in a different direction. Because just saying something like, well, just act like you're a person with more value is not particularly helpful. Because like, if I knew that already, I certainly would have, but there's no intuitive sense of what that even looks like. What words come out of my mouth? When do I say them? How do I respond when somebody says something? How do I set a boundary? What words do I use? In what context? And that level of specificity is so important to have some clarity around how to move forward. Because the reality is that most people are stuck, not because they're dumb, not because they like being sick, right? Or they like struggling. And this is one of the things that drives me nuts when I hear people say this. It's like, well, they just, wear their trauma like a badge because it makes them feel. It's like, I have never known a single human being that likes being depressed or likes feeling emotionally thrown around by, dysregulated anxiety and fear and panic and all of that. Nobody does. It's miserable. It's horrible. And many people would give anything if they could just not feel anxious, depressed, and just feel like they feel terrible about themselves and they're undermining their own success, and they just feel very stuck and very helpless and desperate. So this whole idea that people are there because they want to be is just absurd. And if you're listening to this, just don't ever say that, because it's not true. It is not true. Oftentimes people talk a lot about their woundedness because they are trying to get it healed. It is not because it gives them some sense of joy. Like, if anything, they want to be in a better place. People want to be in a better place. But the problem is there's just, when you're stuck and you don't have an intuitive sense of what to do differently, it feels almost impossible to get out of the pattern that you're in, to get out of the constant struggle with dysregulated emotions or a bad sense of self and a lot of the internal dialogue. And I know that, a lot of people do things like cognitive behavioral therapy or challenging self-defeating thoughts, but that only works to some degree, right? Because the thing that is really going to shift our internal world is to intentionally create some new experiences. Is that those experiences, rather than trying to just challenge our own negative thoughts, or, stop being so negative, just got to be positive. It's like, that stuff just doesn't work, right? So my hope is that through my podcasts, whether you decide to hire me as a coach, go through one of my courses, take one of my workshops, that you will be able to find some specific actions that you can take to create a new experience for yourself. And if you continue taking those steps and creating new experiences, you will be building some momentum towards evolving to a different place in life. And that is what is going to get you unstuck. So I hope you find this information helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a good night.